Well, Adam Liaw, thank you for your time today. We appreciate it. Now, you're a well-known chef because of your work on Masterchef in Australia Network 10. Now, can you just give us an idea of what cooking means to you and why you have such a love and passion for cooking?
I think a love of cooking always comes from a love of eating, and nobody would love chopping an onion if it didn't end up in a beautiful dish. So I love food, and I love the things that food can do. People eat 3 meals a day all over the world, and everyone tries to make them the best meals that they can. So I think it's just natural to have a love for food, and if you have a slightly inquisitive mind, a love for where that food comes from.
Now, as far as most Aussie blokes are concerned, we don't really know how to cook, and that could be a broad sweeping generalisation. Certainly counts for me. Now, where does the skill come from? I mean, if you're looking at basic ingredients or mixing those ingredients up, for someone that's sort of novice at cooking, how do you go about it?
I mean, it's a skill just like any other. You've got to put in the work, you've got to practice, you've got to make an effort to cook a lot, and the more you do it, the better you'll get. And it's also trying to actually push yourself to try new things and to make dishes you haven't made before, and buy a cookbook that maybe you wouldn't normally want to eat from, and then try and replicate dishes that you see in there.
So when did that point come for you? When did that point come where you actually knew that you had a skill with cooking and you had the ability to transform the basic ingredients into something quite special?
I think it's something that develops over time, but it first started for me, I think, when I was probably 8 or 9, and I grew up in a very large family, so we would always help our mum in the kitchen trying to make the evening meal, and every month
most
one of the
kids
kids
shy away from that.
Well, there were 8 of us kids, so once a month we'd each take a turn in making the family meal, and then give mum a bit of a break as well. So
bet you love that.
Yeah, she enjoyed it, and people eating the food enjoyed it as well. So that was kind of where it started from, and then I read a lot more cookbooks, cooked a lot more meals, and then there's always different stages where I think your cooking can really take leaps, just like any skill. You plug away at it for long enough, but then there's periods where it just kind of launches upwards a bit.
Now, speaking of launching upwards a bit, you actually left school and started university at age 16.
Yeah.
That in itself is extraordinary, and then you became a lawyer and graduated from university at 21. Now, can you explain what it was about you that led you to have that level of education and that level of intellect?
Well, I skipped a few years at school when I was a lot younger, and it just sort of naturally happened that I went through at an age that was probably a couple of years ahead of other people, but it didn't advantage me or disadvantage me too much. I think there's obviously a lot that you learn at school and university, but one of the most important lessons that you learn is social skills, and you make friends. I have friends from school that are still my friends today. Most of my friends are still friends from school and university. So I think there's going through it at a faster rate than most other people can often disadvantage a kid, and I think a bit lucky that I've managed to get through relatively unscathed.
Yeah, no, you seem relatively normal to me, so that's a good thing. Now look, in terms of the influences that you did get though, throughout your adolescence and into adulthood, your grandmother was very important to you. Now in terms of being separated out as being a little bit special, you're a great cook, obviously quite intelligent. Now, was she the main influence in your life in terms of pushing you ahead, giving you an idea of how to be successful and how to really take advantage of the skill set that you had, or was it something within inside you?
I think you get influenced by a lot of people, your first boss, your parents, your grandparents, people you look up to, but fundamentally it comes down to the individual. It's whether it's ambition or just a feeling of boredom that drives you to do other things.
But did you sense that from a very early age? It sounds like from a very, sort of almost like a primary school age, you had that within inside you.
Yeah, I've always been a person with very varied interests, and I like to pursue my interests kind of to a deeper level and deepen and broaden my horizons as much as I can. And then I think once you get so many different experiences. The ones that you have a natural aptitude for or a particular love for, they kind of just rise to the surface.
You've gone on now to put together your own book, and that has meaning behind it as well. So the book being Two Asian Kitchens, Old Kitchen and New Kitchen, can you give us a little bit of explanation around the importance of that book to you and how it sort of fits in with your life?
The concept for the book is very much related to my philosophy about food and a philosophy that kind of follows through into the rest of my life as well. It's based around a Confucian quote. In Japanese it's onko chichin, and in Chinese it's wangu jishin, which is essentially, it means to create new things or to progress forward. You need to understand the past or understand tradition. And the book's split into two parts, where it's traditional recipes and also then a progression of those traditional recipes into something more modern. And I think, you know, that applies in cooking and in life as well. There's so much past and so much history and background that you need to know to be able to do something new, and I think it's very important. So
what you're saying is the framework of the richness of what the past can provide you. You leverage off that and create new horizons, create new, paradigms in the way that you do things, but you can't, discount the importance of the past. That's what you're basically saying? Absolutely.
You've got to have a strong base if you're going to build on top of it. And I think obviously the past and understanding the past and understanding sort of the baseline of whatever you're trying to do is the only way to actually build on that and move forward.
Now, in terms of a restaurant as well, you've obviously can't sit still for very long at any one time, and you've moved through life reasonably smoothly. Now, setting up a new restaurant, are you going to apply different skills to that than you have in the past with working as a lawyer for Disney and you work on Masterchef? Are we looking at a whole different skill set here, or are you going to use the same sorts of skills and talents and abilities that you used in the past to this new venture?
I think it's almost going to be identical. You know, obviously it's very different fields, but you know, there's a reason why a person can sit on the board of directors of a number of different companies, and there's a reason why people that are successful in one field can often replicate that success in another. And it's because I think the skills that you need, interpersonal skills, management skills, an understanding of how your customers are going to relate to you and how the people that work for you are going to relate to your approach is pretty universal. It's something that it's very difficult to learn, and I'm not sure if I got it 100%, but it's another stepping stone, and hopefully the restaurant does well too.
Well, let's hope it does as well. Now, one of the final questions I wanted to ask you was in terms of the support that you have around you at the moment. Where do you, obviously growing up in Adelaide, you got support from your family, and later your grandmother. Where do you get support from now?
A lot of different areas, and I think that's one of the most important things that you need to focus on. You can't be an expert in everything, and so in my restaurant, my business partners have been restaurateurs for 50 years between them, and they're also very good friends of mine, which helps as well. But you know, there's personal support from my family as well, which is great, and it's nice to have people around you that you know, not necessarily believe in what you're doing, but believe in you. They'll give me their advice in the most honest way they can, and then once I make my decision of what I'm going to do, they'll back me 100%, even if it's not if it's not following the advice that they give me.
In terms of getting advice as well and support, there's self-talk and there's the talk that you get from those around you, those who love you and those who support you and those who have an interest in you because of financial support and things like that. Do you talk to yourself and say, look, Adam, I can do this. This is something that, I'm capable of doing. Or do you look at past experiences that you've had and say, well, I was successful doing that. Why shouldn't I be successful doing this? So is it something innate inside you, or is it something that you've been trained to do?
You know, having a background as a lawyer is really helpful, because you get the ability then to look at a problem from a number of different sides. And I think that's important. You know, with the restaurant and with the book, there's always a lot of different ways to do things. And if you can kind of have your opinion and your perspective, but then also think, how's someone else going to see this? How's a customer going to see this? How is, someone that doesn't like you very much, how are they going to see it? You get to get from sort of postulating a number of different approaches to it, I think you can see the strengths and shortcomings of most things that people do.
Now, in terms of moving forward, you say that you have issues with being bored and that spurs you on. Where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? Is that Liaw going to move on to bigger and greater things, or will you just pivot from one thing to the next?
I think anything you do is a step forward. It doesn't mean that you need to get a promotion or open a bigger restaurant after you've opened your first smaller one. But I think I'm very happy with where my life is at the moment and the direction it's going, and I'm just stepping into a very new field. And I'm hoping that, I'll, in 5 years I could have another book or two under my belt, and maybe another restaurant or two open, and just, take things one step at a time, but always have this kind of longer term goal of a nice career in writing books that I love, and a nice career in running restaurants that I would go to if I was a customer, and I think it's important to have that longer term picture, and but not be too fussed on the path of how you're getting there.
Well, I think you've got a very successful road ahead of you, and we do appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thanks.